Hello, I'm Gareth, and this is Run for Racing. And this is going to be a channel where I just talk about racing, mainly Formula One, Formula E, Formula Two, bit of probably rally and IndyCar and other stuff. Just because I enjoy thinking about and talking about these things, and I thought it would be fun to put it out there in a longer format, other than just writing. And this is going to be the first video on my channel, which was inspired by a video from Formula One and E reviews. Here is it was on his mail bag, and here is the question in that inspired me to do this video.
How do you think the 2021 grid will form? Can you give us some sort of prediction?
And I thought about this, and I looked in the comments at some of what other people were saying, and I thought about what my response to this would be. And I really thought that writing down my list, I really wanted to add a sort of explanation to them, really show like this is why I chose some of these things. There's a lot of way you can go with it. Obviously, a lot of it depends on things you can't know, things that no one can really know. So I thought I'd just put it together and see. So I started with this. It's a little bit messy, I'm sorry, but I put together all of images of all the drivers we know will be driving in 2020. Now, we don't know. Latifi, for instance, down there for Williams, hasn't been confirmed yet for Williams. But overall, this is pretty much what we expect the lay of the land to be next season. So then moving to 2021. Obviously, there'll be a lot of things that will depend on performance, but just from what we know of drivers, looking down at Williams, I don't see any reason why Williams would change their lineup. Latifi right now is second in Formula 2. He's looking pretty good. Russell's looked great in his first year of Formula 1. He'll definitely be a good team leader going forward in that. So I don't see any reason why Williams would necessarily change for the next season unless they got some sort of big option. Moving up to Alfa Romeo. This is another one that we can't know, but Kimi Räikkönen's contract comes to an end in 2021. He's there for the first 2 years, and after that, he can go where he likes. Kimi is the sort of person where you can't tell for sure if he'll move or not. He's the sort of person who seems to just love racing, so it's very likely that he just stays forever, right? Like, he could be driving well into his 50s for all we know. He might just never leave Formula One. And so you can't know for sure. But I think to be a bit more brave, I don't want to be like, oh, you never know, so I'll leave it still. I thought I'll go for the one. Everyone thinks that Kimi will retire after 2020. This would leave the seat open. Now, it's actually a sort of interesting thing because only one of the Alfa Romeo seats is the Ferrari seat. So it's not that they have, like, the other option is that Giovinazzi will leave and be replaced by another possible Ferrari driver. There's loads of ways this could go. But Giovinazzi, if there's not a space for him to move up to Ferrari, and Ferrari ask for another driver to move up into the Ferrari seat, Giovinazzi might just be good enough to stick at Alfa Romeo. He's been fast. He was quite far behind Raikkonen at the beginning of the season, but he's been catching up on that. And now that he's stopped spinning every damn race, he is, like, a lot of people are starting to see how solid he is. So I'm not even sure that another Ferrari driver coming out would knock him out. So this is one that could go either way. But I think, assuming Kimi retires, they might keep Giovinazzi and bring up another young driver. Could be anyone, but everyone's been looking at Mick Schumacher, right? He's the Ferrari young driver. Everyone thinks he's going to be the next to take Giovinazzi's seat if Kimi does stay, which could happen. It's possible that Vettel could retire. Gio could move up to replace him as Charles Leclerc's teammate, and then Mick could take Gio's seat, and then you could see someone like Callum Aylott or something, come up as well, or maybe even a non-Ferrari driver. Like I said, there's only one seat there that is technically a Ferrari seat. But we're going to get to this later. But I'm not one of these big believers that all these Top Guns are going to be retiring soon. So moving on to Toro Rosso. Toro Rosso is an interesting one because the team principal of Toro Rosso has said, as far as he's concerned, he wants to keep Gasly and Kvyat. He would be happy to keep Gasly and Kvyat for multiple years to come and be able to just work on the team and the car with a consistent driver lineup. Now, this does, in the end, come down to a sort of interesting mix of multiple partners. Honda want to get a Japanese driver in. There's no secret about that. And Red Bull might want to play with Toro Rosso's lineup to support their lineup in the future. But looking at how Red Bull season has gone, Albon is definitely doing better at Red Bull than Gasly did. And Gasly's doing perfectly fine at Toro Rosso. And Kvyat's still doing well at Toro Rosso. So overall, I see no reason for this lineup specifically to change. Haas is a big one on how their year goes. But recently, it was put out by the Haas team, I can't remember who exactly, but by the Haas team, that they feel that they should have listened more to their drivers and they wouldn't have had such a bad season. And that, and the fact that they're keeping both their drivers without picking up someone like Hülkenberg, who's out there and an option for them, seems like they are actually more confident with their driver lineup than most outsiders would be. So I wouldn't actually even be surprised if they kept their driver lineup. And now we're starting to get to the problem that I realised when I started to do this. Because Racing Point, there's no reason that's going to change. Daddy Stroll is obviously going to keep Little Lance there. Perez, he's absolute banging right now. There's no reason to drop him. Then you get to Renault. And McLaren first will do, even though it's sort of not that way on my list. But McLaren totally happy with their drivers. Don't see any reason that will change. And then you get to Renault and Red Bull. Albon, I think, is just going to be happy where he is, at least for a few years. Like, don't see him moving unless he gets kicked out. Then it comes to Verstappen, Ocon, and Ricciardo. If Red Bull keeps not really being able to challenge for a win, and Renault doesn't start really challenging for wins, these three drivers might want to be moving. But we come to the problem of they're only going to want to move up. And the only place up right now, as of now, is Ferrari and Mercedes. And Leclerc's Ferrari seat is absolutely nailed down. There's no way that's changing. Then you have Vettel and Hamilton, who for now, their seats are nailed down. Right? No way, probably, I'd say no way either of them are changing unless they want to. And then Bottas is the big one that everyone assumes is going to be gone. And I can understand why people assume that. But at the same time, Mercedes have already chosen him over Ocon. And I think, because I thought about this a lot before they made the change, I talked about it a lot, and I think the choice was the future or keeping Hamilton happy. And I think with the Bottas move, they moved to keep Hamilton happy. And with that in mind, and with how Bottas has, he's not quite Bottas 2.0, but he's honestly been doing fine. It's not a Verstappen-Gasly situation where, Gasly's so far down the back of the field that Mercedes can just drop into the gap. So, with that in mind, I still don't know if they would even bother cutting Bottas. Like, I feel like if you're going to drop Bottas, you might as well do it now. So, and then it comes down all to the last bit. Will Vettel or Hamilton retire? A lot of people seem to think that they will in 2021. But I'm not so sure. I'm not so brave, perhaps. Hamilton, by 2021, assuming that he wins this year and the next. This year is almost entirely confirmed by now. And next year is not so, but, he's in the best car. He still can do it. Or, well, maybe not anymore, but he's in one of the best cars. He can still do it. If he does both of those, he will be matching Schumacher's record. I feel like if you're Hamilton and you're in the position to be able to win, you don't retire when you literally have the biggest record in the sport right there for the taking. You at least spend a couple more years, right? He's got time left, right? People like Kimi have proved he's got time left. And even though there are a lot of great young drivers, like Reddy, a lot of the top ones are already in the sport. So honestly, when you look at it like that, I don't think there's going to be any rush for him to get out. He's still, keeping up with the whippersnappers, right? And Vettel, he's had some bad times this year. But again, he seems like he loves racing. He seems like he wants to be in this for a long time. I don't see why he'd go. So we get to this point where, as far as I can see, this is going to be it. This is going to be the lineup. But I thought, I can't just make a video like that. I can't just hit that ending screen button now and just go, and there we go. That's what I think the lineup would be. Because even me looking at this goes, really? What, one change? One change? And so I started to think of how I could go. Let's take this as a baseline. This is what the 2021 grid very well may look like, and let's try and be more interesting. Now, I already talked about, a lot of people think you'll have Hamilton and Vettel retiring. Giovinazzi will replace Vettel, and then you have Schumacher and Alfa Romeo, maybe Ilott, maybe someone else coming into Alfa Romeo, maybe Kimi will stay around. There's all sorts of options there. There are a lot of people who are thinking, different people moving to Mercedes. There's, Ricciardo could go to Mercedes or even Ferrari. There's a lot of people who really want that Ricciardo at Ferrari. And as a Ferrari fan, I've got to say I wouldn't mind. That would be a pretty nasty pair in my eyes. Verstappen, Ocon, Russell for Mercedes. There's a lot of these great options that people want to see in better teams. So I was thinking, which way can I do this? Because you can go a lot of ways on this, a lot of reasonable ways that could all make sense. But I decided to go back to something that was said. It's been mentioned a few times. I think it was said a few years ago, but it was mentioned a few times. Something that Hamilton said. Hamilton once said that he would like to end his career at Ferrari. Now, as I said, I don't think there's any reason for him to retire. And it would make sense in my eyes, talking about beating Michael's record, getting that last thing. The one thing he hasn't done that Michael did do is win a world championship at Ferrari. And so, as Vettel did after becoming a 4 times world champion in Red Bull, it's very likely that he could want to move to Ferrari and go, I've matched, he might have, assuming he wins next year, which, he might not, he might go, I've matched Schumacher, let's finish it off at Ferrari. Give it the real last test. And with how good Ferrari are looking now, if this carries on, that's not looking like a bad strategy, necessarily. Now, with that said, I also said Vettel wouldn't retire, as far as I could see. And there's now that juicy seat open at Mercedes, right? Looking good. However, just for this, I'm going to say Vettel retires, because I feel like at least one of them has to retire. Otherwise, I've got the same problem as before, where I have a really stagnant board. But there is that space at Merc Open now. Could be Vettel, but that locks another team down, which I want to talk about. So I don't want to lock them down. And so I decided, let's go with the fan favorite, the one everyone wants. Verstappen to Mercedes. This sets up the awesome rivalry between him and Leclerc. You know, we can't know how the cars will be in that many years. The Red Bull might be right up there again, might be the best car. One of either Mercedes or Ferrari might have fallen off. You can never really know. But assuming things are about as they are now, and Red Bull hasn't managed to catch them. Also, this is going to be after a big rule change, which could throw everything out entirely. But assuming that the cars are about where they are, because, you know, we can't assume anything else. Verstappen getting a different chance, a chance to be in a team that's been so successful, to really go for the World Championship against Charles Leclerc, that could be big exciting. This I made partially because it would be cool to see, but partially also because this opens up the topic of Red Bull. Because this is Red Bull's worst nightmare. This happening is Red Bull's absolute worst nightmare. But if they're not a world-class team, they're not going to get world-class drivers. So, you know, it's possible with how good McLaren are coming up, if Renault managed to pick it up, if some of the other teams stop having their troubles, that we could see them falling back towards the midfield rather than catching up with the top dogs. So assuming that happens, who would they take? Now, I would go, and it might seem strange, but with Gasly. Because he wasn't bad at Red Bull, right? He was bad at Red Bull, but he wasn't awful, right? He could drive that car. And if he manages to come in and gets another chance at it, he could be more consistent, right? He won't be getting smashed by Verstappen as much. He might be able to fit in slightly less far behind Albon. And I really think that Helmut Marko just, like, the fact that they brought Albon up means I think Helmut Marko is just entirely against the idea of ever bringing Kvyat up again. Like I said, Toro Rosso are happy with Kvyat. They don't want to drop him, so I don't think he'll get dropped. But I just do not think that Red Bull will be moving up there again. This leaves the door open at Toro Rosso for Honda to have their sorry for all the bleeps, lads. I'll make sure to go offline on things before the video next time. This leaves the door open for Honda to get in the Japanese driver they want. Now, true, Christian Horner has said that Yamamoto, Super Formula champion and Jenson Button's teammate right now, Horner's said that he isn't a fit for Toro Rosso, something about that, which did actually make me possibly consider putting him in the Red Bull and going with that. But I'm going to put him in with Toro Rosso. Honda want it, and also Red Bull have they've said a lot of things about driver lineups in the past which haven't come to pass. They said that they wouldn't drop Gasly. So I'm gonna take what Red Bull management say with a pinch of salt. And I'm going to imagine that with the Honda engine improving, hopefully being more consistent, they will maybe get a bit more say at the table. And Yamamoto just seems like the obvious pick, right? There's Matsushita, there's a few other people who are sort of around like Formula 2 level and stuff, but this is a champion. This is someone who has been good, right? Who I think would be a great option to pick up. And someone who could be a quick slot up into Red Bull if Gasly doesn't do it again, and if they want to if they want to keep sort of picking from inside their family and inside Honda rather than going elsewhere. So now we're back to Mercedes, because the whole swap up in Red Bull and Toro Rosso was because of, and by the way, I do know Toro Rosso won't be Toro Rosso by now, but I don't have the logo for their new brand. Um, Mercedes without Hamilton, I think, has no need for Bottas. I think Bottas is there because of Hamilton. And once Bottas is out, that gives them the perfect opportunity to do what it looks like Toto wanted to do from the start. Get him out of there and bring in Ocon. Now, you see, I put him at Haas. I did say earlier that Haas didn't have any trouble with their driver lineup necessarily as much as other people thought. But when someone as consistent as Bottas is free, and Haas have said, like, you know, no rookies, right? So it's possible that they would have taken someone if there was someone available who they thought was an upgrade. I feel like Bottas is an upgrade on either of Haas's drivers. I've put him in for Grosjean because Grosjean is the one who, you know, everyone gets a bit more it's a bit more rib from everyone. He's the one everyone's assuming will go. So I do think that would make sense. But it could be either of them, honestly. I just think that, like, if Bottas is out of Mercedes, he's an obvious pickup. And I don't see him going to Red Bull because they seem to like to pick from their own. I don't see him going to McLaren because they've got the team they love right now. He could end up at Alpha as replacing someone like Gio if they're going to have Mick. Or if Mick doesn't come up because he's not ready yet, just replacing Kimi. Very possible. I'm not sure he'd end up at Williams with how badly they're doing. But that's also a possibility that a lot of people are talking about. He could also end up at Renault. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bottas being taken up by Renault. He's the exact sort of person Renault are looking for. But the reason I've put him with Haas specifically is just because when I first started doing this, there was one name who I thought of coming into Formula One who just seems like such an obvious pick. And that is Guanyu Zhou. Because he is doing really well in Formula One. He looks like a strong, competent driver. He probably, I think, looks like the best out of the Renault Young Drivers program. I know a lot of people are going to want Aitken up there. I believe he is actually ahead slightly in the Formula 2 scoring right now as well. So another option that could be there. But I'd go with Zhou just because Zhou is Chinese, right? And we know from many other examples on this board and many examples in history that money can bring seats, right? When you imagine someone like Aitken coming into a seat and you go, British, good for sponsors, right? That's always been a thing in international sports because the native English, right? Big brand out there, especially with something like Formula One, which is so big in the UK. But if you bring in another UK driver, even though Aitken is an incredibly popular one, you got Hamilton, you got Russell, you got Norris, and you have Albon, right? Born and raised in London. So you're really getting to a point where that sort of market for fandoms is maybe stretched thin a bit. Whereas China doesn't have a representative and doesn't have anyone to draw their sponsorships. One of the reasons we all know that Sergio Perez was kept around even when he had bad years, right? One of the reasons that a lot of people think that he was kept over Ocon when it was one or the other is because he brings big sponsorships from Mexico. And Zhou could very well do the same thing with some sort of Chinese company. I think he has a Chinese bank as a sponsor already in Formula 2 or Virtuoso, so it wouldn't surprise me if he could bring over some big sponsorships. And so this is where I ended up. This is where I ended up with my idea of what could happen. Like I said, looking back at it, I'm not sure. Literally, I'm getting messaged on every different program I can possibly be messaged on. But I've done the whole video now, so oh well. Bleeps galore. I'm sorry for anyone who uses Discord, Steam, or WhatsApp who thought that they were getting messaged. That's something I will definitely remember to improve on. I think Discord doesn't do its natural streamer mode thing when you're just recording, so Streamlabs didn't shut that down. But anyway, looking back at this, afterwards, after I made all these decisions, I definitely think that I'm not so certain on the Verstappen moving to Mercedes thing. You know, like I said, this was a brave thing. It was some brave moves going on here. Ricciardo staying at Renault, even if they have troubles, like, and don't get better than they are now, real sad. Real sad. And if that did happen, I'd really hope he'd move up to Ferrari or something, right? Maybe even back to Red Bull. That could be an option. But I mean, I would love to see Leclerc and Ricciardo in Ferrari if Hamilton does retire. And if you don't get Verstappen moving to Red Bull, I'd really love to see Russell move up there. Russell and Ocon, right? Even Russell and Bottas. Something like that would be absolutely brilliant. I do think this is something that I have been thinking for a while. In 2021, if Vettel retires, you could see someone like Ricciardo in there, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see them bring up Giovinazzi, especially if he keeps being consistent and pretty good in the Alpha, even if just for a season or so, to then give his seat in Alfa Romeo to Mick, and then Alfa Romeo have their own driver. I am looking at the two Ferrari drivers in this, and I'm a bit concerned about that. Like, would they really want two young Ferrari drivers? But at the same time, if Gio's doing well, keep him even if he is a Ferrari driver. And you want Mick's name in there, so... Anyway, that is just what I came up with as an idea for a bit of a bold prediction. I can check back in 2021 to see if I'm right. I'll probably actually check back on this at the end of the 2020 season, when I inevitably do a 2021 prediction then, with more knowledge and having seen another season. But yeah, thank you for watching this first episode of Run for Racing. Thank you to the other YouTubers doing this who've inspired me, Formula One and E Reviews, specifically for inspiring me with the with this question in particular. Remember to check him out. I'll throw up his channel so you can see. Check your boy out, because I inspired this video and I used a bit of his thing in there. And remember to like, subscribe, all that nonsense. Click the bell if you want notifications. If not, don't. Oh, do you know what? Now I've written that there, thinking about it, I always do feel that that's a bit much to ask to say click the bell, because you might not want a notification every time it's released. You can look in your subscription thing, find every video you want, so whatever. But yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll start doing these more regularly. I need to obviously find some things to talk about. I'm not sure if I'm going to start doing videos every race, but I might. And Mexico is not until next week, which makes me very sad, because I'm going to have a whole other week going with nothing to talk about. But thank you very much for watching, as I've said 3 times already, I'm sure. And goodbye.